So something that, I personally had a really hard time with, again, like, back when I was a much more junior user researcher, something that I didn't really like was like the silence between people's answers, right? So it's like I ask some question and then, people respond, and I would just jump in with another question because, hey, we've got all these different questions we want to get through. We want to like extract the maximum that we can. You don't want to do that because, again, kind of the whole point of a user interview is all about depth. It's all about the why, right? And so you don't have to ask every single person the same set of questions because, again, this is not a survey. This is not kind of, quantitative analytics. You're trying to understand the why. And so something that's really helpful is once people respond, like just pause. And many times when people kind of hear that pause for just like one or two breaths, they'll think, oh, actually, I just had another thing that just came up. And then they say, oh, by the way, here's why I'm doing the things that I'm doing, right? Or like, oh, here's like a totally different challenge I forgot to tell you about, right? And so pausing can be super duper helpful. And another thing that is, very counterintuitive is sometimes it's better to just deviate from your, interview outline because you've captured a really meaty why, right? I think something that happens quite a lot is when folks are kind of new to user interviews, they think, oh, well, I definitely have to ask the same set of questions to everyone throughout this entire process. And that doesn't have to be true, right? Kind of, if you find that there's a particular line of questioning that is like super valuable and you want to dedicate more time to that, you should ask that more for like future ones. And if you find that there are some questions that are like not really worth it, stop asking, right? If you find that, something keeps coming up, feel free to ask about it more, right? And so interview number 1 does not need to look like interview number 15 because you have learned so many different things in between. So you should feel free to iterate on your interview outline because the goal is not to compare, number 1 to number 15. It's what is the cumulative knowledge that we've built in terms of who are these people, why are they doing what they're doing, what are their problems, and how are they making decisions, right? So so like those are the ways in which I would think about very counterintuitive stuff. Is don't rush through your outline, right? Like give people space, and it's okay if you don't ask all of your questions. Be sure to plan for people giving you that time, right? So you don't want to pack your interview with 15 questions in 30 minutes. There's no way. You want to be you want to feel confident about being able to pivot in terms of questions, right? So like, oh, like this is a thread that I think is actually really valuable for me to build something that actually matters. So feel free to deviate. And in terms of asking questions to other folks, totally helpful to be able to kind of shape that as you go. I think there's one more thing that's also really helpful is telling interviewees up front what it is that you're about to ask them or the areas that you're going to be focusing on, right? Because I think a lot of times that can help them give you more relevant information, right? Like it's a partnership, like the two of you are having a conversation. And so you shouldn't feel like, hey, I can't let them know like what the focus areas are. Because again, one of the challenges with user interviews is that they can do a lot of different things, right? Whether it is, hey, how do you see yourself as kind of a customer segment, right? Kind of that like psychographic identity component. Or whether it's, how are you currently living your life, right? What are the different processes in place? What are the existing systems that you have? Is that the area of focus? Or is the area of focus, I actually have this product idea and I want you to kind of, poke holes at it. Like, what are the places that like don't make sense to you, right? That is like a totally different focus, right? So it's very helpful to be able to say upfront, here's what I want to generally cover with you. And here's like generally the kinds of questions I'm going to be asking. Any questions about the direction that this interview is going to go, right? And like that way, they can be a very helpful partner in terms of giving you that deeper insight in the direction they want to go, kind of instead of just like very broadly everything about them, right? So that can be really helpful. So kind of final parting piece of advice, right, is again, part 1, for people to want to purchase your product, you have to create value for them. Like kind of if you create value for them, then they're going to want to be able to give you that value. And so the only way to create value for them is to understand what is it that is problematic for them. Right? So you don't want to just charge in with, this is definitely the solution. You want to be able to talk to people first about who are you? How do you identify? What are your pain points? And what are you currently doing to solve that? So then you can identify how can I jump in. Right? So part 1 is create value for others so you can capture that value as a business. Part 2 is many times people will give you feature requests. Don't just build them at face value. When you get a feature request, push a little bit deeper. How would that help you? What is the problem that that's solving? Why is solving that problem helpful? Right? Because again, you as the founder, you better understand the technology that is available at your disposal. You better understand kind of market trends, etc. Whereas the user is expert at being a user. Right? And so make sure that you're keeping that in mind as you're talking to folks, and you'll go far by solving their problems in a way that is scalable for you and your organization. So yeah.